Cinnamon Most Fire. So I've been looking at Twitch a lot lately. So if you're not familiar with Twitch, Twitch is sort of to gaming what YouTube is to online video. I've mentioned before that when I first learned about vlogging, it didn't really click with me. Like, why would I watch some stranger talk about themselves in front of a camera on the internet? And so gaming channels were even stranger to me. Like, why would I watch that same person not even talk about something, but just play a video game that I could be playing? Like, games are an interactive media. It's what makes them so appealing. And isn't watching someone else play them just completely removing the interactive part of it? But much like vlogging, as I've been more exposed to it, I've learned that there's more to it than that. The people who are successful putting Let's Play videos on YouTube or streaming on Twitch aren't just having you watch them play a game. They're building a community around the games they're playing, they're doing creative things, they're making storylines around the gameplay, they're interacting with their community. Basically a lot of the same kind of things that we try to do on a YouTube channel, but in a different format. A lot of the games that are really popular on Twitch are either competitive and strategy games where people are watching for their skill, or creative games like Minecraft where people are watching to see what kind of things they'll create within the sandbox. And as strange as it seems that there are people who actually make a living just playing video games and having people watch them, it is a little more complicated than that. Like, as I've looked into this more and more, there's people who make these crazy overlays that interact with the community in different ways. They have to decide if they're going to use a face camera or not. They have to decide what kind of software to use. They have to have everything up and running at the times they stream at, which most of them have scheduled streaming times. Also, most of them stream for several hours at a time, and it's not just them sitting there playing video games. They're delivering commentary and they're talking with the community the entire time. So they're effectively always on. They don't have the option to retake over and over and over again like I like to do when I make my videos. There's also a lot of really interesting analogs between Twitch and YouTube. Like, one thing that I think is really great about Twitch is that even though it has a huge audience, it's still kind of a niche category, and the site is still really useful for discovering. Not like YouTube has kind of not been useful for finding new content for a really long time, but Twitch is super easy. You just search for the game that you want to watch, it'll list everyone who's currently streaming it, and you'll be able to tell immediately, these are the people that have a lot of viewers. If you want to watch them, they're guaranteed to have an active chat. There'll definitely be something going on, but it might be overwhelming. You might not know any of the things they're talking about, all the way down to people who, like, one or two people are watching them play, and you know that that's a small streamer, that if you go into that chat, there's a really good chance they'll interact with you directly. And that's another thing that's really interesting about Twitch is instead of a comment section, because it's happening in real time, you have a chat. Sometimes the community's having conversations in the chat, sometimes they're asking questions to the streamer, sometimes there's a back and forth. The really cool thing about this is that it's an instant way to engage with the audience. People can ask a question, the streamer can answer it, they can be having a conversation back and forth, they can actually directly influence the content as it's being made. And while the upside of a live chat is really strong, so is the downside, because it also means that trolling is super easy. A few people can come in and just kind of ruin the chat for everyone else involved. And they also have more incentive to troll because you can see the reaction of the person you're trolling in real time, which means if they react to it, they're just feeding the fire and it gets worse, and everyone's unhappy. So basically it's all of the potential and more of YouTube comments to be interactive, and all of the potential and more for them to be garbage. But one really interesting difference between Twitch and YouTube is that Twitch has been doing something for a while that YouTube still doesn't really seem to have a grasp on. Donating is a totally normal thing in Twitch streams, and it's really common. Like, a lot of the larger streamers will be donated to during the streams, and they'll have something come up on their screen to show like, oh, you know, such and such donated $5, such and such donated $4. And if they have a big audience, that adds up pretty quickly. Like, YouTube has Patreon and a couple other ways of donating directly to content creators, but nothing that's integrated and nothing that is really seen as normal yet. Like, it's still kind of strange when someone goes out and says, hey, I have a Patreon, will you support me? But on Twitch, it's a totally normal thing to just have a donate button and say, hey, if you decide to donate during the stream, that would be great. If not, that's cool too. YouTube recently introduced its own game streaming service called YouTube Gaming, which is basically the same thing that Twitch does, but not as well and integrated into YouTube. I don't think it's really that useful for anyone other than people who maybe got their start doing Let's Plays on YouTube and wanted to get into streaming and wasn't really sure how to make that crossover. I don't know that streaming is something I would necessarily want to do, but it's really cool that these communities are out there and developing around it, and it's something that I think I would like to at least give a shot sometime. But I'm not quite ready to dive into the Twitch streaming world just yet, although I have had an idea that I've wanted to do for a while for a gameplay video, which I decided, you know, this is a good time to do it. So I might have it up by the time this video goes up, in which case I'll link it after the video in some way, shape, or form. It's a Pokemon playthrough. Most of you guys probably won't be interested in watching it, but if you are, it'll be linked. Your call. But yeah, those are some of the things I've noticed about Twitch over the past couple of weeks. I think it's really interesting to look at sites other than YouTube that do the same kind of thing but in different ways and have different ways of shaping their communities and different ways of sharing content, because as I've complained several times, YouTube is really great for some things and not so great for other things, and it's nice that there are some other outlets out there, because sometimes I just think that YouTube is too big. But if it wasn't here, where else would we go to find our cat videos and, I guess, educational content? See you guys.